Dr. Leon Stutzman, aka Doc, with another one of these little videos designed to help you to get through these strange days in which we find ourselves, and these are strange days indeed. I want to talk this week about thinking strategically, because we are living in strange days, and in strange days you need to think strategically. Now, there is a little light at the end of the tunnel. I'll be talking about that next week during the Christmas week. But between now and then, I want you to start thinking about your 2020. What's it going to be? It's going to be exactly what you make it to be, and to make it to be what you want it to be, you have to think strategically. The eldest granddaughter came home the other day with a box of donuts, and she said, "Pop, I got you a donut." Well, I eat donuts about once a year. I have a donut, and she brought me a donut. That made me start thinking about a story I read years ago about the donut industry in Los Angeles, California. It's virtually owned by the Cambodians, and there's a reason for that. A Cambodian man at the end of the Vietnam War by the name of Roy Ngoy came over to the United States penniless, without a future, enrolled in a Winchell donut making school, and out of that school bought a donut stand. Then he bought another donut stand. Then he sold those donut stands and bought a chain of donut stands. And every time Cambodians would come over from Cambodia, he employed them and started them out in the donut business. And they bought more donut stands. Today, 80% of the donut stands in Los Angeles, California are owned by Cambodians. 90% of the donut stands in Houston, Texas are owned by Cambodians. And the kicker to the story was Cambodians don't actually like donuts, but they thought strategically. And because they thought strategically, they have become very prosperous people in the United States of America. How do you think strategically? Let me give you a few thoughts on thinking strategically, and then share something with you about the New Year's Eve service. It's going to be absolutely powerful. First, you have to assess your circumstances. Where you're at, what's happening. You may not like what's happening. You may not understand what's happening. It may be totally, completely foreign to you, but you have to assess what's happening around you. You have to assess your circumstances. What are your circumstances? Secondly, you have to understand your ability. Oftentimes, people live above their abilities, and oftentimes people live below their abilities. So you have to understand your abilities. What are you suited for in the circumstances in which you find yourself? And then number three, you have to plan accordingly. What's your plan? You have to have a plan. There's a great verse of scripture in Proverbs 20, verse 5 that I've lived my life by. A plan in the heart of man is like deep water, but a man or woman of understanding will draw it out. Of course, I added the women of understanding will draw it out. Why? Because you've got to have a plan. You have to understand your circumstances, assess your circumstances. You have to acknowledge your abilities, live within the context of your abilities, and then develop a plan accordingly that will carry you through to your desired goal in life. The goal of those Cambodians was not to fry donuts. The goal of those Cambodians was to succeed in the United States, and they have succeeded remarkably well because they thought strategically. Are you thinking strategically? On New Year's Eve, we always have a miracle blessing service, and it's always powerful. The beginning of a thing determines the end of a thing. If you start out right, then you're going to end right. I always share a prophetic word, and it is a prophetic word. And I always ask everyone to do one thing. I want you to write down how much money you want to make in 2021. Now think about that for a minute. Now I always give this caveat. If you're making minimum wage, don't write down $50 an hour. If you're making minimum wage, write down $12 an hour, $15 an hour. Making $15 an hour, write down $20, $25 an hour. If you're making $50,000 a year, write down $70,000 a year. It has to be reasonable. It has to be something you wrap your head around. I want you to write that down, and I want you to think about that between now and New Year's Eve. It's going to be powerful. Of course, we've got some Sundays to go between now and New Year's Eve, and I have a word from God. Going to change your life this Sunday about that light that's shining in darkness, because there is a little light at the end of the tunnel, and it's going to get better and better and better if you are thinking strategically. You can catch it all on the live stream at aspirechurch.tv, aspirechurch.tv, on Facebook at Aspire Church TV. That's Facebook, Aspire Church TV, live stream aspirechurch.tv, Sunday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Of course, the New Year's Eve service is December 31st, Thursday at 6 p.m. It's all going to be powerful. It's all going to prepare you to have the 2021 that you want to have. It's going to be a great year in God. I know that to be true. I'm Dr. Leon Stutzman, a.k.a. Doc. Thanks for joining me. Join me Sunday, and I'll see you on Wednesday.